Taiwan has its own president, its own military, its own currency, its own elections. And if you land in Taipei, nobody checks your passport on behalf of Beijing. But China still says Taiwan is part of China. And Beijing has made clear that one way or another, it wants Taiwan to come under its control. So why does China want Taiwan so badly? The simple answer is territory. But that answer is too small. Because Taiwan is not just an island on a map. It is tied to the end of an empire, a Japanese colony, an unfinished civil war, a lost seat at the United Nations, American strategic ambiguity, and a democracy whose people increasingly do not see themselves the way Beijing wants them to. The missing context is this. The Taiwan dispute is not only about who controls Taiwan. It is about who gets to define China. To Beijing, Taiwan is the last major piece of unfinished national reunification. The People's Republic of China argues that there is one China, that Taiwan is part of it, and that the separation across the Taiwan Strait is a leftover from the Chinese Civil War. In this view, reunification is not expansion, it is completion. To Taiwan, or more precisely to the Republic of China government on Taiwan, the reality looks different. Taiwan has governed itself for decades. Its leaders are chosen by voters in Taiwan, not by the Chinese Communist Party. Its courts, military, schools, economy, and political life operate outside Beijing's control. And to much of the outside world, the answer is deliberately uncomfortable. Many countries formally recognize the People's Republic of China, but still trade with Taiwan, talk to Taiwan, and depend on Taiwan. The United States, for example, does not have formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan, but it maintains unofficial relations and a legal framework for helping Taiwan defend itself. That is the modern contradiction. Taiwan acts like a state. China claims it as part of China. And many countries try very hard not to say the quiet part too clearly. To understand why this is still unresolved, we have to go back before the Chinese Civil War. For centuries, Taiwan sat at the edge of Chinese empires, maritime trade, and indigenous societies. Qing dynasty China eventually brought Taiwan under its rule, but Taiwan was not always treated as a central, fully integrated province in the way modern nationalist maps can make it look. Then, in 1895, everything changed. After losing the First Sino-Japanese War, Qing China ceded Taiwan and Penghu to Japan. Taiwan became a Japanese colony for 50 years. That matters because one of the most common slogans in this dispute is that Taiwan has always been part of China. But history is messier than slogans. Taiwan was ruled by Qing China. Then it was ruled by Japan. Then, after World War II, the Republic of China took control of the island. That transition after 1945 is one reason the legal argument around Taiwan can get so complicated. Japan lost the war. The Republic of China, led by Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationalist Party, took administrative control of Taiwan. But the later peace treaty with Japan said Japan renounced Taiwan and Penghu. It did not use the kind of clean wording that ended every future argument about sovereignty. Most people do not live inside treaty footnotes, but governments do. And Taiwan became one of those places where military reality, diplomatic language, and political identity did not line up neatly. Then came the event that still defines the dispute more than anything else, the Chinese Civil War. On one side were the nationalists, also called the Kuomintang, who governed the Republic of China. On the other side were the communists, led by Mao Zedong. In 1949, the communists won the war on the mainland and founded the People's Republic of China in Beijing. The nationalist government did not disappear. It retreated to Taiwan. So for a long time, the conflict was not simply China versus Taiwan. It was two governments claiming to be China. The People's Republic of China controlled the mainland. The Republic of China controlled Taiwan. And both sides initially claimed legitimacy over all of China. That is the strange root of the modern dispute. Taiwan was not born as a separatist project. It became the refuge of the losing side of China's civil war. For Beijing, this is crucial. If the Civil War created a divided China, then Taiwan is not a foreign country. It is the final unresolved battlefield of that war. For many people in Taiwan, the same history points in a different direction. If Beijing has never ruled Taiwan, and Taiwan has built its own political system over generations, then why should Beijing get to decide Taiwan's future? During the Cold War, the outside world made the situation even stranger. For years, the Republic of China on Taiwan held China's seat at the United Nations. But in 1971, that seat went to the People's Republic of China. Then, in 1979, the United States switched diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing. From then on, Washington recognized the People's Republic of China as the government of China, while maintaining unofficial relations with Taiwan through the Taiwan Relations Act. This created the policy maze people still argue about today. The U.S. has a one China policy. Beijing has a one China principle. Those sound similar, but they are not identical. Beijing's position is that there is one China, and Taiwan is part of it. The U.S. position is more carefully worded. It recognizes Beijing as the government of China, acknowledges Beijing's position on Taiwan, maintains unofficial ties with Taiwan, and opposes unilateral changes to the status quo. In plain English, Washington tries to deter Beijing from attacking Taiwan, while also discouraging Taiwan from declaring formal independence in a way that could trigger a war. It is not a clean answer. It is a balancing act. And that balancing act has lasted, because nobody likes the alternatives. But while diplomats were preserving ambiguity, Taiwan itself was changing. For decades after 1949, Taiwan was ruled by an authoritarian Republic of China government. It was anti-communist, but it was not yet a liberal democracy. Then Taiwan democratized. Opposition parties became legal. Martial law ended. Elections became real. And in 1996, Taiwan held its first direct presidential election. That changed the moral and political center of the dispute. Because now Taiwan was not just a government in exile claiming to be China. It was a society where people living on the island were voting for their own leaders. This is one reason Beijing's old Civil War framing has become harder to sell inside Taiwan. Younger generations in Taiwan did not grow up trying to retake the mainland. They grew up in Taiwan. They vote in Taiwan. Their daily political reality is Taiwan. That does not mean everyone in Taiwan supports declaring independence tomorrow. Many do not, partly because the risks are enormous. The status quo has broad appeal precisely because it lets Taiwan remain self-governing without forcing the most dangerous question to be answered immediately. But the longer Taiwan governs itself democratically, the harder it becomes to describe the issue as simply a temporary civil war problem. So why does China still care so much? There are at least 4 reasons. First, legitimacy. The Chinese Communist Party presents itself as the government that ended China's weakness, restored national dignity, and reunified the country after a century of humiliation. In that story, Taiwan remaining outside Beijing's control is not just a policy problem. It is an unfinished chapter. Second, nationalism. Taiwan is emotionally powerful because it touches the question of whether China is whole. For Beijing, allowing Taiwan to become permanently separate could look like accepting that China's civil war ended with a permanent loss. Third, security. Taiwan sits about 100 miles off China's coast. It is part of the island chain that runs from Japan through the Philippines. To military planners, Taiwan is not just symbolic. It affects access to the Pacific, sea lanes, and the balance of power between China, the United States, and U.S. allies. Fourth, precedent. If Taiwan can permanently reject Beijing's authority, that challenges the People's Republic of China's claim that national unity is non-negotiable. Beijing worries not only about Taiwan, but about what Taiwan represents. And then there is one more modern layer: chips. Taiwan is home to TSMC, the company at the center of much of the world's advanced semiconductor manufacturing. Its chips power phones, data centers, artificial intelligence systems, cars, weapons, and the infrastructure of the digital economy. That does not explain the origin of the dispute. Beijing's claim is older than modern semiconductors. It comes from history, sovereignty, civil war, and national identity. But TSMC explains why the rest of the world watches Taiwan so nervously now. A crisis over Taiwan would not stay local. It could shake technology, trade, shipping, alliances, and the global economy. This is also why the United States has tried to bring more advanced chip production onto American soil. Under Trump, the White House highlighted a major TSMC expansion in Arizona, and the administration treated semiconductor imports as a national security issue. That does not make Taiwan less important. It shows how exposed the world feels when one island becomes so central to the future of computing. Recent U.S. China diplomacy shows how delicate this still is. After high-level Trump-Xi talks in Beijing in 2026, the official U.S. message focused on trade, investment, rare earths, and economic deals. But China's own readout put Taiwan near the center of the relationship. Then Trump described a pending Taiwan arms package as a negotiating chip with China, even as his Secretary of State said U.S. policy had not changed. That mixed signal is the modern problem in miniature. Taiwan is self-governing, but its security can still be shaped by negotiations between Beijing and Washington. And sometimes Taiwan is not the one at the table. This is why Taiwan feels so dangerous. It is not because one side has a simple claim and the other side has no claim. It is because different versions of legitimacy are stacked on top of each other. Beijing sees an unfinished civil war and a missing piece of national reunification. Taiwan sees a self-governing democracy whose future should be decided by the people who live there. The United States sees a flashpoint where peace depends on keeping several contradictions alive at the same time. And the rest of the world sees a place that many countries do not officially recognize as a state, but cannot afford to ignore. So why does China want Taiwan? Because for Beijing, Taiwan is territory, history, legitimacy, security, and national identity all in one. And why is the dispute still unresolved? Because Taiwan is no longer just the place where one Chinese government fled after losing a civil war. It is now a democratic society with its own political reality. That is the missing context. The argument is not only over an island, it is over whether the future of Taiwan should be decided by history, by power, by diplomacy, or by the people who live there.